Welcome back, sickos, to another episode of Necessary Roughness right here on the Bite Size Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, John, joined by my lovely co-host, Ben Parker of Sports and Money KC. Ben, how you doing this Tuesday evening?
Man, I'm doing great. I hope all of you are listening. We're looking for the chat to come in hot tonight. They've been pretty on fire the past couple of weeks, so I'm not looking for any lower performance out of them tonight. I'm doing great because football is rocking and rolling. We had some people stand up this week in a legit way. And best of all, I get to talk about it all with you, man. So let's do it.
Yes, sir. Always a good time. I think we can start with a new kind of topic for you this season. Something new to you is the Chiefs losing a game and us getting to talk about that. So I've got a ton of I was really intrigued with this game, the way it played out, the kind of levers that Sean McDermott was able to pull, and some of the counters that Brady and the guys had to what Spags was doing to them. But as a Chiefs fan, I'm sure you were, even more tuned into this game than I was. Give me kind of your larger takeaways, some things that you think factored into the loss, and does it change the way you feel about the team at all at this juncture? And what do you think the impact of this game will be going forward?
Yeah, so my large takeaway is Steelers, Bills, Eagles. They all three stood up big this week to at least give us all something to think about as we approach the playoffs, kind of flexing their legit top-end muscle a little bit. It doesn't change my mind on Kansas City at all. Very little would, right, short of a Mahomes injury. The Chiefs have a team that could win the Super Bowl, deserves to win the Super Bowl, but there are several who do. But this was not a team that deserved to be undefeated. The fact that they were undefeated this long was almost funny, right? But there they were, figuring out ways to win, so hats off to them. Listen, Kansas City, we know their tackles are struggling. That's going to be a problem all the way through the playoffs. We know that this defense is good, but not great. We know that the wide receivers are kind of lost right now. So somebody needs to step. The tackle situation is not going to get any better, but the wide receivers can. So they need to establish something there. And then hats off to the Bills, man. They stepped up. They slayed the giant, but it's only regular season. So come see me playoff time.
Yeah, 0-3 against the Wicked Witch in the playoffs. So we will see if they're able to get there. But they've had big regular season wins against Kansas City. I think the difference this year is like you alluded to, what Kansas City's been able to do to close out games throughout this season, squeaking by teams and doing just enough to win the game. And really up until that last Josh Allen touchdown to make it an 11-point game, it felt like another instance where KC was going to figure out a way to pull it out. The way it stayed close like that, you almost expected them to just execute better down the stretch. But on those gotta have it plays, those gotta have it downs, is when Buffalo was really, really strong. So I pulled and these did match kind of the eye test. I pulled a lot of really interesting stats to me from this game, and a lot of them centered around third down. And it was two different sides of that coin with Buffalo and KC. So on third, when Buffalo faced third down, they had 15 third downs in this game. They had a 67% rushing success rate, which on third down success rate is just whether you get the first down or not. And they had a positive 0.41 EPA per play on third downs in this game, which is very good. For some context, that's up there with the best. So Mahomes' EPA per drop back on third down is over 0.5, which is incredible. And that is what sort of flipped in this game. What Buffalo was able to do to KC on third down.
Yeah.
On 7 third down dropbacks, the Bills got 4 pressures. KC had a negative 0.24 EPA per play on third downs in this game. And the Bills throughout the course of the game pressured KC 37% of the time. That's the third highest pressure rate KC's allowed this season. And a lot of it, Kansas City's conversions, they were on consequential downs. They were 5 for 9 on third down, 5 for 10 if you count the final third down when they were down 11 and driving. But on those where they were forced to drop back on, let's say third, I think it was 3rd and 6 plus, there were 3 really, really, really interesting Buffalo reps. On the first one, Kansas City lines up 3 by 1. They've got Kelsey all the way out right to the trip side. They motion him into number 2 in the bunch, and the Bills sort out the bunch out of man. Great communication because they do this quick motion to kind of throw off your assignments out of the bunch. You can already do tricky switch releases and stuff to really stress man coverage out of a bunch. But Taron Johnson, holy shit, is he the best slot corner in the league. He was incredible in this game. He's been great all season, but on that particular rep, just completely erased Travis Kelce. And the Bills ran cover 1 with a spy. They had Terrell Bernard spying Patrick Mahomes. So just as they took away all the initial reads, Mahomes tries to escape to his left. And just as you're about to see some of that Kelce Mahomes magic unfold, that's when Terrell Bernard darts and he gets a sack on Mahomes. The next third down they get, it was a 3rd and 8, I want to say. The Bills show the exact same look. They've got Bernard over the A-gap, up on the line of scrimmage, just where he was spying on the previous third down. At the snap, and this is another, the KC's in a bunch again, bunch to the left side. They've got Justin Watson isolated to the right side. And they run the same look Buffalo does. All of a sudden, Terrell Bernard ejects out of the A-gap. They go into a drop 8 cover 2, and they keep a spy off the line. And Von Miller gets home for a sack with a 3-man rush and a spy. And Buffalo's just playing great coverage off the back end. There was a 3rd and 14 later on where the Chiefs go empty and they go twin chippers with the back and Travis Kelce attached to the line of scrimmage. And the Bills are in man again, sort out a bunch to the left side, including the back. And Mahomes has to just check it down to Kelce on the chip and release. And I think it was I actually don't think it was Taylor Rapp. I think he was in the high zone here, but their other safety triggers down from 20 yards deep to make the tackle on Kelce and line up with him in man. And it's the secondary for Buffalo and the off-ball linebackers were the biggest reason a lot of people were low on this team coming into the season. Absolutely. That's why it felt like a reset year. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer gone, Trey White gone, even though he was coming off the injury last year anyway. But Christian Benford has been incredible. Taron Johnson has been incredible. In filling in for Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard has been awesome. And what they've gotten from the rookie, is it Dorian Williams for Buffalo?
Yeah. Well, he's the second year guy. Yeah.
I think second year guy. They've gotten great play out of him in lieu when Bernard went down as well. And I think it's a real testament to Sean McDermott as a head coach and the fingerprints he has on this defense. They're just I don't think they're ever going to be a bad unit. I mean, you could siphon all the talent out of that group and they'd probably still be league average in the way they produce. It's just such a good unit. And it was on those money downs that the game really swung to me. From watching the game as well, does it kind of feel that way to you? Like, did it feel like on all those third downs where Mahomes has just been pulling rabbits out of hats all season, did it feel like that was one of the big differences in the way this team felt this week?
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't necessarily spot that, but by the way, Skull for Life checks in. How you doing, Skull for Life? Welcome aboard the ship.
Barber.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes,
So
sir.
the Chiefs have been flirting with danger all year on this kind of crap right here. The Houston Texans have done some of the same thing, right? You're in these third and longs, these third and mediums,
Yep.
and you're kind of pulling rabbits out of the hat. Well, that works until it doesn't, right? It works until you're up against another good team that can score points. You know, it worked. But I'll tell you what I like what you said about the Bills defense there. The talent is less. There's no question about it. They don't have as much talent as they did the past 3, 4, 5 years. They just don't. But if the New England Patriots over the past 25 years have taught us anything, it's that if you have lesser talent, but you're good at X's and O's and at scheming and at teaching guys, and if those guys will do what you say, then you can still be good even if you don't quite have the talent. Now, you can't do that with zero talent, but still, if you take a step back in talent because of finances or drafting or whatever, you can still be very good if the guys will just do what you say, and if you're good at teaching them as a head coach or as a coordinator, either one.
Yeah, 100%. And those few veterans that are still there, like the Teron Johnsons, and Matt Milano's going to be back. And what Terrell Bernard has done with the green dot, Teron Johnson, like just watching the film from this game, you can see the communication on the back end in real time. Like I mentioned, that one play where they sort out the bunch. Again, they ran that quick motion with Kelsey just motioning from number 3 to number 2 into the bunch. And in real time, those corners and that safety have to sort out who's got who. And, you know, what like JT O'Sullivan of the QB school, it's always who's who in the zoo is the phrase he always says. It just popped into my head. But they've got to sort that out really, really quickly, and they've got to all be on the same page. And I think you're kind of seeing how good of a job Sean McDermott does of instilling those things and teaching guys and having that communication translate onto the field. And it's just a really cohesive unit. On the opposite end, the first 3 third downs for Buffalo were thematic of the game. First drive, 3rd and 6, 30 yards to Amari Cooper up the boundary. One of the better throws and catches of the week, that one-handed, left-handed catch from Amari Cooper, absolute seed from Josh Allen. Those first 3 third downs, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 30 yards, 15 yards, 15 yards. They were really, really strong on those money downs on both sides of the ball. And, I mean, that's the Chiefs' game, and they beat them at it. Really, really good showing from Buffalo. They're probably still breaking folding tables in Buffalo as we speak. But, you know, it's kind of one of those things where the Chiefs now, I think at a certain point, too, you kind of want to get that first loss out of the way. And at least it wasn't a real stinker against a shitty team. You know, this is another AFC contender. You can take that loss. You can recalibrate and, you know, take what you learned and go for the rest of the season. Any final thoughts on Buffalo?
No, your XO stuff there is fantastic as usual, because that's not always stuff I can pick out and see. So I really love what you drew out there. Kansas City can still win the Super Bowl. They're as dangerous as ever. They may still get the home field advantage, but they've got their work cut out for them. Just as much as last year, when last year we were questioning the offense, it was bland and boring and couldn't find their way out of a brown paper bag, right? But they've got the work to do. We'll see if they can pull that out.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, still very, very much in there. It was a contentious game. You know, it's not like they got blown out. It's not like they laid an egg. Buffalo just came with a really, really good game plan. They executed very well. And we saw, you know, a lot of Josh Allen magic for sure. Now this game was something of a religious experience for me. I kept my son up a little late just because I thought this was something he should see. And, he didn't see it as much on a Burrow. He was only up for about the first quarter. But holy cow, did he see some absolute just shoebox throws from Justin Herbert. What did you think? This was kind of a tale of two halves, but the Chargers pull it out in the end. This was a primetime game. What did you think of kind of the quarterback duel? And, what do you take away from this for both teams? Bengals fall to 4-7. Chargers now sitting at 7-3. How are you feeling about these teams going forward? And what did you like about this game?
You're right. Tell two halves. That's key. If you miss the first half, you don't know what happened. If you miss the second half, you still don't know what happened in this game. This was a tale of two halves. I'd love to talk about the Chargers, but I'm gonna sit on the Bengals here for a second. I've seen teams go 2-5, 3-4 that were a whole lot better than that. I've never seen a team go 4-7 that was lighting it up this much on offense and had a quarterback this good and a sick Jamar Chase running around all over the field for several games now playing this good. I mean, goodness gracious, they are so good. But that offensive line sucks. They have sucked for 3 or 4 years now. Joe Burrow runs for his life every game and still throws a lot of great passes, and that defense is terrible. I don't really know how the Bengals are in some of these games, but it's Burrow and Chase and Higgins, and they're lighting it up. I mean, it's so impressive. They're not going to do a darn thing with it this year, and the team is frustrated. You could see the Jermaine Pratt getting frustrated. You could hear Chase after the game getting frustrated. You could see Hendrickson, the defensive end, getting frustrated. They all want it to be better. They've seen better, but it's not going to get any better in time for them to make the playoffs this year. It's gotten too late on them.
Yep, the defense is just such a disappointing unit. Not that we had super high expectations for them. I picked them to miss the playoffs preseason just because I thought the run defense would be so bad. It's gotten a little bit better since BJ Hill came back, but it's still a rough group. And you've got the guy. You have a guy on your roster leading the league in pressures, and this might be one of the 3 worst defenses in the league.
Yeah.
It's really tough when the offense is hitting its stride like this. Real quick, no, Barber, Ben is actually a Chiefs fan. So we have the 2 best teams in the league represented on this show. This is, obviously we talk about the whole league. It's nice to have another perspective, at least for me. And, there's only one other Vikings fan part of the network here, and he's half of our fantasy show on Wednesday nights. Josh Limisan, but we've got Colts, Titans, Chiefs, Packers, Bills, Giants, all kind of represented on Bite. Let's see. So yeah, this was it's an interesting one too because it's 2 of my favorite quarterbacks to watch. First of all, yes. But within both kind of their play styles and within the context of the offense, this is kind of a clash of 2 different passing offenses stylistically. Just in this very game, couple big differences. The Chargers ran play action at a 40% rate. They're going to condense things. They're going to run a lot of 12 personnel and muck it up. The threat of the run is a big thing with the Chargers, and they like to establish that and work off of it. Burrow kind of came into the league. He likes to spread it out. He doesn't like much motion. He likes to empty it out. He doesn't mind being hot and kind of making that decision with an unblocked defender. And they ran play action at a 17% rate in this game. So more than twice as much play action was called on the Chargers side of things. And opposite of that, and this might have something to do with the Chargers being more willing to keep someone extra in on protection and running some of that play action that pauses defenders. But Joe Burrow saw a 44% pressure rate in this game. Justin Herbert saw a 24% pressure rate in this game. And they were both really sharp. You just didn't see it really click for Burrow into the second half. And you also had that kind of, just drought for Herbert through most of the third quarter. But Burrow had some, but Justin Herbert had 4 or 5 unreal throws in this game. And that receiving core is getting to be kind of exciting. You're getting a lot out of Quentin Johnston now. Josh Palmer has always kind of been your boomer bust type of receiver, but he's starting to get some work more in the intermediate, kind of starting to round out his route tree, become more of a complete receiver in this offense. And Ladd McConkey, if he's ever open, he is wide the fuck open. He separates at such a high level. Had a tough drop in this one, but he's really starting to come into his own, and might kind of be on that. I don't know that he's as dynamic after the catch like in the screen game, but he reminds me of Chris Godwin a little bit at times. That inside out flexibility, great separator. Really solid prototypical size. So that group's great. The tackle duo for LA is awesome. And this team now at 7-3, I think there's only 3 teams in the AFC I'm going to take over the Chargers on any given day.
Wow.
And as far as
who are the 3? I know who you're leaving
taking
out.
them seriously.
I know who you're leaving out.
So yeah, for me it's Ravens, Bills, Chiefs that I would take above the Chargers. Outside of that, it's I'd take them over Houston right now, as consistent as the Chargers have been. I'd certainly take them over Denver, although I do really, really respect the Denver defense. Bo Nix has been really solid, and what they're doing to kind of, cater to him and cater to his skill set, it has been really good. And the run game starting to come along. Great O-line in Denver now too. But outside of that, I don't think there's another team that's even in that conversation for fourth to me in the AFC. And any given Sunday, I wouldn't put it against them to even give the Ravens a run for their money. Now, the other team in that group is Pittsburgh, right? And that's the next team we're going to talk about in some capacity. But for me, I just don't have the trust in that offense that I do in the Chargers offense when they're really under the gun. And quietly with the kind of it's pretty middling talent on the Chargers defense, but it's kind of like the Bills, like what Harbaugh and Minter have done with that group. They are greater than the sum of their parts on that side of the ball. They've been so good, and legitimately a top 5 to 6 unit in the league this season. And I think I just trust that offense a little bit more when it really comes down to it. Where would you land on kind of the Chargers Pittsburgh sort of comparison as you kind of look at the AFC as a whole?
At the moment, I'm with you. I do trust the Chargers offense more, and their defense is every bit as good as Pittsburgh's defense. I mean, there's no question about it. You look at it from almost any vantage point. It's almost, for me, the Ravens I might consider dropping until further notice. I know they could win the Super Bowl, but they haven't been very good. The defense is terrible. They cannot stop the pass in any way, shape, or form. And Lamar has his own disappearing act sometimes. It comes and goes. When Lamar's playing good, Lamar's the best in the league sometimes. He does things nobody else can do. And then you just have weeks where he disappears. You're like, where'd he go? He just wasn't there. He just really wasn't there. But I'll go back to the Pittsburgh thing. I'm with you. I don't trust the Pittsburgh offense. I trust Mike Tomlin. I trust the defense. I trust them to be in every game. But you're going to have to score some touch. You cannot get to the Super Bowl and only kick field goals, man. All right? You just can't do it. So I don't trust the offense, even though I really I like Pittsburgh a whole lot better now than I did, say, 4 or 5 weeks ago. The chat has started to heat up here. Had a good game between the Celtics and the Cavs. Nate says the Packers cheated. Of course they did. They always do. Lee says Staley.
Nate will get to that for sure.
Staley was bad. Yeah. And then the Ravens defense is an issue. Lamar has been bad in the playoffs for Trevor. No question.
Yeah, frankly, I don't know how much better the Ravens defense has been than Cincinnati's. And, for the last 4 or 5 games. Started off decent. Yes, better against the run. I do like their front better, but from a talent perspective, they should be a lot better on the back end, and they just haven't been able to, do these same things that we talked about the Chargers and the Bills are doing. There's just a bunch of gaffes on that side of the ball. So many explosive plays they're allowing. They're pretty good on first and second down. They're pretty good at, keeping offenses out of super manageable third downs. But it doesn't matter how manageable the third down is when, you can get the top taken off at any given moment. And it's weird when you think about Marcus Williams. You kind of think about him as one of the better center fielders in football. Kyle Hamilton might be the best safety in football, full stop. But it's just there's some age there. Brandon Stevens is having a really rough year, despite being only like 26, 27. So yeah, the more that I think about it, I don't know. I might trust the Chargers more than them too. I think it's a really good, really complete football team. And the few of us who were really high on them coming into the season feel a little bit vindicated right now. There were dozens of us, but it's something that is coming to fruition with Harbaugh and everything he's instilled in the run game and the defense. It's a really fun team to watch. If you don't mind, just slow, grind it out, kick your ass football game. And that's exactly how they've been. So Trevor says not even dozens.
2 of us.
It's even more rarefied air for me.
I had them at like 9 and 8. Yeah. So it was basically just you, Johnny.
Yeah. That'll be top of my resume as a career prognosticator. All right. So let's talk about the best player in football behind Zach Bond. Chris Boswell. I have some interesting things to say about Chris Boswell. So obviously he wins the game single-handedly over Baltimore. 6 for 6 on field goals, 18 points for the Steelers. They squeak one out. That Steelers defense keeps them out of the end zone on the 2-point conversion to seal it. But just think about these few nuggets and ponder on these, those of you in the chat as well. Chris Boswell has 9 50-plus yard field goals this season. He's 29 for 30 total on the season. He has 2 games now with 6 made field goals. He also has 2 games with 4 made field goals. He has 87 points on field goals and another 20 on extra points. He has 107 of Pittsburgh's 233 points on the season. I mean, this guy is so dialed right now, and in the same season that we're starting to see Justin Tucker come back down to earth, in the same season that we're seeing multiple kickers miss multiple field goals in a game, Jake Moody, we've seen Evan McPherson in that Bengals game against the Chargers missed 2. This has been the most consistent kicker in football, and they have needed him to be. this team would have 2, maybe 3 fewer wins if their kicker wasn't Chris Boswell. He's been unreal. I mean, obviously, I'm being facetious with the offensive player of the year. I don't know that there's a special teams player of the year, but give him the Vinatieri Award or the Grammatica Award or whoever that's named after. He has been ridiculous and one of the biggest driving forces in Pittsburgh's success this season. And it's tough to say out of one side of my mouth that I don't trust Pittsburgh's offense enough when I do trust them between the 20s. And if you get to the 43, you're probably putting points on the board. But Chris Boswell has been unbelievable, and I just wanted to shout him out really quick. But while we're kind of on the subject, we can extrapolate a little bit with this Steelers group. The defensive performance we saw them put together against Baltimore was unbelievable. Lamar Jackson is now 1-5 in his career against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's somehow managed to dodge them so many times now. He's only played them essentially once a year since he got into the division. But man, what they put together as a game plan for him. No Alex Highsmith. You see Nate Herbig is the edge.
It's
yes,
a Herbig.
Nick Herbig's the offensive.
Nick or Nate, but yeah.
One of the Herbigs had a couple of huge plays. You didn't really see a drop off in production at edge. T.J. Watt obviously commanding a bunch of attention. You're still seeing great stuff from Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton showing flashes at times. Joey Porter Jr. looks great. Minka looks great. Like it's Patrick Queen. How about the Patrick Queen revenge game? It was a really, really impressive performance from that defense, and they've had a lot of them this season, but that might have been the most so. Forcing the first fumble out of Derrick Henry in his last 400 carries or something ridiculous like that. And they did just enough. If this offense can click a little bit, just hit its stride a little bit towards the end of the season, this team's going to be really, really dangerous again.
Yeah, I agree. They are dangerous. How good can they be? I need to see more of that offense. But you're dead on with that Steelers defensive game plan. There is no secret about how to stop Lamar and how to stop this Ravens offense, but the Steelers are able to execute it. Not everybody can. First of all, you stop the run. You don't shut it down because you're not going to shut it down Derrick Henry. But basically, he had 15 carries for 65 yards. 31 of those came on one carry, which means the rest of the time he's 14 carries for about 34 yards. So you can see that the YPC went way down. The book on Derrick Henry has always been load the box a little, gang tackle a lot, fill in all the gaps, don't let him get momentum or a head start or anything, and you can really keep his YPC down. We saw it for years and years with the Titans that defenses could stop him if they made a point to do it and if they were good enough to do it. So that's where you start at. Then you leave Lamar with the passing game, but you hem in Lamar. You don't get too greedy off the edges and try to sack him every freaking play. You just hem him in so that when he's looking downfield and then all of a sudden he looks for a place to dart, he's got no place to dart. He's kind of hemmed in. So you let your edges, don't get them too far upfield. That's step two. And then on the back end versus Lamar, you just kind of keep giving him different looks. Don't give him the same look. You confuse him. And that's how you slow down this Ravens offense. And not everybody is capable of that, but it can be done. So even though statistically the Ravens are the best offense in the league and it's not even close except for Detroit, there are ways to beat this Ravens offense that maybe there aren't to beat the Lions offense, for example.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And we've talked about on this show in the past, the Ravens still don't have top end juice at the skill positions. or with their pass catchers, I should say. As much as I love Zay Flowers, he's not, your kind of do it all receiver. He's kind of got a little bit more of a niche role. Rashad Bateman is fine, we'll see what Deontay Johnson kind of turns into, but Mike Tomlin's not worried about Deontay Johnson. I don't know if you saw that quote. Yeah, he said something to the effect. They were like, oh, what are you going to do to stop Deontay Johnson? And he was like, well, I actually haven't seen much of him from watching the Ravens. I think they've got, a few more guys they're going to pay attention to. Just really dismissive. He's been hilarious this year. And yeah, that's exactly right, Trevor. That's a perfect point. The Steelers have 6 division games. Chiefs and Eagles are their last 8. They just got through 1 part of the gauntlet, but their next 7 include another game against the Ravens, twice against the Browns, twice against the Bengals, Chiefs, and Eagles. So, I mean, sitting at 8-2 though, you go.
It's a good head start.
3-4 the rest of the way, 4-3 the rest of the way. You're still feeling just fine. And yeah, and I think Trevor's kind of speaking to my point there too. Like, yeah, when it's rolling, it's really difficult to contend with. When you've got, like the zone read game with Lamar, when Derrick Henry is able to get ahead of steam, when that offensive line is, because you can poke some holes in that offensive line. Rosengarten is gettable. Yeah. Daniel Falele is gettable in pass protection. That right side's a little questionable. You can heat him up a little bit off that right side. And, if they're not able to really get it going and kind of jump down your throat early in the game, they're not the Bills or the Chiefs or these high firepower teams that are in a position to come back in certain games and put points up in bunches when they're forced out of their, kind of ideal game script. If they're not able to punch you in the mouth and, out of 21 personnel with Ricard and Henry on first and second down, all of a sudden they're a little bit easier to contend with, especially if Mark Andrews is going to be, a ghost the rest of the season again. But they lost to 3 of the 4 good defenses they faced, and the rest of them, 100%. We saw fireworks against the Bengals, but who didn't? All good points there. So let's talk about really quick before we talk about the cheating Packers and appease Nate a little bit. Let's talk a little Taysom, not over the hill. Taysom Hill on Sunday. Over 100 rushing yards. Over 50 receiving yards. Over 10 passing yards. A 42-yard kick return. And 3 rushing touchdowns. One of which was 75 yards. He is the oldest player in NFL history at 34 and change to have a 75-plus yard rushing touchdown. That is Taysom Hill. And I don't know if they fired their Scrooge coach and now they're just doing all the fun shit that they had in their vault. But oh my God, was that just a Taysom Hill showcase? They were doing anything they could to create advantages with where they were lining him up, and I don't know, man. That was just a fun. I feel like Taysom Hill should be like a 14th year senior on Army or something. Like he's just the funniest type of player. You don't know what position he is. He's really one of one, and it's kind of fun that he's still, that he's still got the juice he does, and they're still trying to get him involved in these ways, even in his older age. Because that last fake ass contract he got, a lot of people were like, "Are we really extending him? Like, is he that?" But I don't know. His utility is one of the rarest skill sets in the league. So, what did you see from that game, and did you have as much fun, and did you laugh as hard as I did watching all this stuff happen?
So, for those of you who don't know, and I guess everybody does, Taysom Hill does this kind of stuff every week, right? But this was the most Taysom Hill of Taysom Hill games where he's really got the stats to show what he is capable of. And for all the grief we've given the Saints over the years, and they deserve it, here's a coaching staff that is willing to use a guy like this, because a lot of coaching staffs either wouldn't be willing or wouldn't know how to use a guy like this. This coaching staff has always found ways to use a guy like Taysom Hill. Reminds you a lot of what the Patriots used to do with a couple of their players over the years. So really love that. The big key here, though, is Eric McCoy is back. The Saints offensive line, while it's not untalented, it drops off spectacularly when Eric McCoy is not there in the center. He just came back 2 weeks ago, so he kind of had his warm-up game. Him being back in there gives them time to throw the football. It allows them to run the football better. It then sets up your play action. When you got all that moving, now you got a guy like Taysom Hill who can go off, and he did. So Taysom Hill is spectacular. Eric McCoy is kind of the key that unlocks all of that. Had McCoy been healthy, maybe the Saints win a couple more games, and maybe their coaching staff's not out the door.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I've heard this said. I think it was Robert Mays of The Athletic said, I hope that the way the rest of this Saints season goes isn't enough for them to justify kind of running it back again, you know? Which I thought was really apt and really funny, because that's been every season for them. Hey, we got to 8 and 9. Like, if a couple things broke a different way, we'd be a play, and they keep kind of cycling through things. And I think that the Marshawn Lattimore trade and the Dennis Allen firing were some inklings of, hey, they might be coming to Jesus a little bit with this operation and kind of taking them, looking themselves in the mirror and taking the situation a little bit more realistically. But real quick for Nate here, I don't have a ton to say on this game in particular. I was really in and out of it, but Jeremiah Searles, former Vikings and Bills, and I think another team offensive lineman, he does a show called the O-Line Committee with Alex Boone, if you remember Alex Boone. And they'll do some film breakdowns and stuff like that. And one of the big gripes Searles had this week was the 2, in his opinion, blatant penalties that should have been called on that blocked kick. First, you are not allowed to touch that long snapper. And they were all over him. And you're also not allowed to push your fellow D lineman. And there was some pushing going on to propel guys. And they end up blocking the kick. Good drive from Caleb Williams to get him down into field goal range. But you get down there and all of a sudden you rest on your laurels. And instead of trying to get as close as you possibly can, you settle for the 46. He's got to lower his trajectory a little bit to get that kickoff, and maybe even with those penalties, if you're a little bit, here we go, Trevor. Yeah, good call. Maybe if you're a little bit closer, all of a sudden you can get that ball up higher, and yeah, good call. And maybe it's less blockable if you're closer, just the way the physics of it works, but. I don't know. That's a really tough loss for Bears fans. They haven't beaten the Packers since 2020, maybe. No, that was a Rodgers MVP year. It might be 2019. It's been a long time, and they should have gotten them there. So that's a bummer. Real quick, let's end on this. Our esteemed colleague, Kev Nevick, is a Colts fan and has, really been vocal about his opinion on the initial Anthony Richardson benching, the subsequent Joe Flacco starts that were. So you'd bench Anthony Richardson, you suit Joe Flacco up for a game against Brian Flores' defense, and he has by far his worst performance of the season, absolute drumming on that side of the ball. And then another poor game after that. And then Anthony Richardson comes back into the lineup against the Jets, who seemed pretty disenfranchised with the whole operation since Saleh was ousted. But it's still a talented group defensively. All Anthony Richardson does is come back and have positive 0.26 EPA per dropback. In one of the better performances, they win it by 1, eke it out. He goes for 241 through the air, 7.5 yards per pass. The touchdown, takes just 2 sacks despite being pressured 36% of the time. Pressure to sack conversion rate was low. They did a ton of play action in this game. It was the highest rate in the league, ahead of what Clint Kubiak did with the Saints. It was over 46% play action rate, higher than that of the Chargers this week. So both with how Richardson played and what they did with the game plan, because you can really, really weaponize him if you are using the threat of the run game, because the threat of the run game is much more prominent with him in the game, even if you are handing the ball off. Just that threat of what he can do with his legs makes it difficult on defenses to play any sort of light boxes, because it's hard, it's easier to be gapped out when your quarterback is a running threat. It's just the math of it. And when your quarterback is also, an absolute transformer, it makes it even more difficult to contend with that just by body type. So, if it's an Anthony Richardson run and you got a 7-man box, but you're in nickel, tough shit. Somebody's getting run over. Get off the tracks when the train fucking blows its horn. Like he just absolutely runs over a guy on his way into the end zone for that rushing touchdown. It was a really, really, really good game for Anthony Richardson, and something I think from which Colts fans can draw a lot of hope, both for the rest of this season, because they are far from out of it in the wild card race, but for Richardson going forward and his development. And he seems to have really taken that benching on the chin and been better for it. So, hey, maybe all the shit we were giving the coaching staff was a little premature. Maybe all they needed was to just take him down a peg, sit him down, and he came back stronger. Maybe that was the plan all along. What's your thought on Richardson kind of coming back with a vengeance? Is it more to do with the opponent, or do you expect maybe not as good of play, but similar play and similar play calling going forward for the Colts? Because the roster is solid.
Hats off to Anthony Richardson for being emotionally up to this, because not everybody handles the benching the same.
Yeah.
Some guys question themselves, and then other guys are just kind of rattled a little bit. But he came back strong, and you're right. This was his best game. Now, it wasn't his most impressive in terms of big plays necessarily. And while he had 2 rushing touchdowns, he only had 32 total yards with a long of 5. So it's not like he broke one. And, 20 out of 30. I love seeing a stat line of 20 out of 30, more so than 21 out of 25. When you throw 21 out of 25, there's a whole bunch of screens in there, and everybody knows it. It's kind of like you're running the football that way through a bunch of screens. But he's 20 out of 30, and he's spreading the football around to all kinds of different guys. And not one of his guys had a huge day, you know? I mean, the longest pass play was 39. You got another one 31, another 33. So, you know, when you look at his 272 yards, it's not like, oh, there was an 80-yard play and a 50-yard play, and the rest was just kind of dink and dunk. Man, it's just good throws. Part of that is the Jets' defense. We've seen that several. We saw Caleb Williams have a monster game against the Panthers. We've seen Bo Nix light up the Falcons. So part of that is the defense just isn't doing very well. But still, hats off to Anthony Richardson for showing us kind of a grown-up game. I mean, this was a grown-up game. This wasn't him being spectacular. This was just him being a mature quarterback. Will it continue? Probably not. You're still – listen – it's going to take another 2 years for Anthony Richardson to shake out this inconsistency and this accuracy thing. It's just going to take more time. But to see it here today like this, really encouraging that, hey, maybe we'll see more of it.
Yeah, 100%. I really liked him coming out, and I hope – you know, even through the ups and downs, that it does turn out well for him and for the Colts. Because, yeah, you know, I really like the rest of the roster. You know, it's something where I don't know if they panicked for that reason, where it's like, hey, we can't waste, you know, a playoff caliber roster because our quarterback plays tanking us. And I don't know if they just did that twice with saying, okay, if Anthony Richardson is playing like this, we got to do something else to salvage this. Oh, fuck. If Flacco was playing like this, we got to do something else to salvage this. But, you know, they made the right choice at the end, and it looks like Richardson is kind of coming out on the other side of it. But, you know, even with that, it's gonna be tough sledding this year. You're going to see more stuff that he's going to have to overcome, better defenses they're going to end up playing. But I mean, the Jets defense now at this stage of the season is kind of like the Bizarro Bills, where it's like they're a more talented group, just clearly less disciplined and poorer communicating unit, and definitely exposed. Real quick, we got a couple buzzer beater questions from Trevor. Should the Cowboys give Trey Lance a chance? I don't know why they didn't. You traded a 4th-round pick for him. You know exactly what Cooper Rush is, and it's not good. It's a CFL MVP, but it's not an NFL quarterback at this point. You knew exactly what you were getting. Put Jerry Jones in a home, remodel the fucking stadium, get a real quarterback in there. You trade a 4th-round pick for a backup. In the, you know, case that Dak goes down, and then you just still put Cooper Rush in there. You trade a 4th-round pick for Trey Lance and a 4th-round pick for Jonathan Mingo. What are we doing with 4th-round picks? The allocation of 4th-round picks is hilarious. And yes, I think Trey Lance should have a chance. Another shitty NFC East team making a shitty decision. Why are the Giants going Tommy DeVito over Drew Lock? My short answer is vibes. It doesn't feel like that long ago that Pete Carroll had a serious conversation with reporters about the quarterback competition between Drew Lock and Geno Smith. And now you finally sit Daniel Jones down, and it's not to salvage any of this season necessarily if you're going Tommy DeVito over Drew Lock. But it's also not necessarily to develop a potential starter going forward with Tommy DeVito. I feel like we kind of know what his ceiling is. This feels a lot like benching Derek Carr for Aiden O'Connell, but they did it sooner. And I think Aiden O'Connell might have a higher ceiling than Tommy DeVito. If you go into next season with Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito, or Tommy DeVito and Jacoby Brissett, or Tommy DeVito and Gardner Minshew, or fill in the blank veteran retread, like the Raiders did this year, that would be an absolute monstrosity of a decision. And I think, you know, but the thing about it is, like, Joe Shane's timer probably hasn't really started yet because he hasn't got his quarterback in the building. Neither has Brian Dable. So as much as it seems like a fuck show in New York, and it seems like heads should roll, I don't really think we're going to see any of that take place until the offseason after this one, if not the following, contingent on whether or not they actually get a quarterback in the draft this season, or if they pay Sam Darnold $40 million once he finishes his audition this season, winning a Super Bowl. But I just wonder how trigger happy they would be with it, if it's going to be free agency, if it's going to be the draft, and we'll see what happens. Any thoughts on these two extremely inconsequential quarterback moves?
Yeah, the Giants need to let go of Daniel Jones. They should have never given him the money. 75 to 80% of the media and the talking heads said you have to pay Daniel Jones. It's just the way business is done in the NFL. And those of us who study the game and are smart said, no, you don't do that. It's dumb. They did it. They're paying a price for it. We'll see if it costs anybody their jobs. Go ahead and let Drew Lock go. There's no need to pay him $5 million. Let Tommy DeVito be your third-string quarterback. Go out and draft either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, depending on who you like and where you end up in the draft. And then get you a good backup like a Jacoby Brissett. Not a presence like a Joe Flacco that's hovering, but just a good, standard backup like Jacoby Brissett. Let him start the season. Let him take the lumps. Then if everything feels good and your rookie looks good, let him come on in the middle of the season. That's my path to the New York Giants, man.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. All right, well, that will do it for us. Thanks to everybody in the chat who stuck around with us for commenting, or you window shoppers. We still appreciate everybody who tuned in. If you haven't already, leave a like on the video on your way out. Helps us out a ton. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We will be weekly on this show and a bunch of other fun stuff going on Bite Size Sports, fantasy show on Wednesday nights, talking NBA and previewing Thursday night football on Thursdays at, I think that's 6 Eastern, maybe 7 Eastern. Time zones throw me off, but check that out as well. And Ben, before we get out of here, let the people know where else they can find you and your work.
So I go straight from here to the Odds On Favorite podcast with Robertson Buyer. That'll come out either late Wednesday night or early Thursday morning, but you can catch it on Apple and Spotify. We do all kinds of things, including our dipstick of the week, which somebody always steps up and provides a great story for that. And then Robertson's reactions, which is 5 or 6 rapid fire things. We just shoot at Robertson. He gets like 30 seconds to spit it out an answer. So go check it out.
Yes, sir. That's a fun show I can vouch for. As far as myself, obviously right here, 9/8 Central, every single Tuesday, talking about the past week in the NFL. And you can also find my written work at zonecoverage.com. Covering the Vikings. Just had a big piece about Jordan Addison come out, about his role in the offense and how the Vikings could maybe get him more touches, should they, all that. And I will be publishing tomorrow a piece about Minnesota native and former Golden Gopher Blake Cashman. So really excited to round that one out. He's super fun to watch. And there is weekly content over there from a lot of other really good writers on zonecoverage.com. So check that out. There is not a subscription service, just a lot of really engaging articles covering Minnesota sports as well as the Packers, if you're into that sort of thing. But thanks again to everybody watching at home. We will see you guys next week. This has been Necessary Roughness on Bite Size Sports. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, guys.